Hey everybody, it's Roman Smith with the Mortgage Center. I'm here today to talk about appraisals. There seems to be a lot of confusion as to when appraisals are ordered, when they're not ordered. This blog today is going to detail in what circumstances it's going to be needed. It's a little counterintuitive. You see, there is typically an appraisal or some assessment of value 100% of the time. Now, does that mean that they go through the property and take pictures every single time? No. So I'm going to divide this into three categories. Less than 20% down, 50 to 20% down, and greater than 50% down. Those are the three main categories. You could argue with me a little bit on this, but that's the three general guidelines. Now, less than 20% down, the bank's going to want to make sure they know the value of the property. But do they require an appraisal? The typical answer is not usually. The reason being is less than 20% down are insured by either CMHC, Genworth, or Canada Guarantees. There's mortgage insurance. That's that big insurance premium you hear about. Now, in those circumstances, those lenders typically, though not always, have an internal modeling software that looks at sales in the area, MLS prices, listings, etc. And as long as you're within the range of normalcy, not wildly above or below, they're going to accept that value. Now, there's times when, even when you've got the mortgage insurance, they still ask for appraisals. And that's sometimes when there's a rental component to the property, or it's a particularly unique or high-end home, or for whatever reason, if they don't support the lending value of the home. So that's if there's less than 20% down. You typically don't need appraisals. But again, an assessment of value is always being done. Now, from 50 to 20% down, you will almost need an appraisal 100% of the time. Now, some banks, Scotiabank has an internal property assessment tool that they use, and they will do similar to those systems through the mortgage insurers. Well, they'll do like an electronic appraisal. But they have some guidelines there. You know, the property can't be more than a certain value, not eligible for homes beyond a certain age, size, or whatnot. Usually those electronic systems are only allowed in a major urban setting and whatnot. So most times, 50 to 20% down payment, you're going to require an appraisal. Costs about $250 to $300 depending on where the property is located. This is assuming it's a general normal transaction. And the appraiser will go to the property, take some photos, walk through it, and then prepare a report anywhere from 7 to 40 pages depending on the complexity and depending on lending requirements that outlines everything about the property and makes an assessment of value based on other comparable sales. Now you may think to yourself, okay, well, if I'm putting 20% down or more, why do they want an appraisal when I put less than 20% down, they don't want an appraisal? And the answer is that when you're putting 20% or more, that bank is absorbing the full risk of that mortgage. If you default on it, or the property values fall and you walk away, they eat the loss. Versus, the mortgage insurers are the ones that take the loss in the event that you're putting less than 20% down. So the bank leaves it up to them, because they ultimately are the one at risk, to make an assessment of value. So, less than 20% down, probably not an appraisal, but you may have to depending on the property. 50 to 20% down, in that range, you're going to need an appraisal of some kind, whether it's an electronic one or whether it's a walkthrough. Typically it's a walkthrough. 50% or more down, we can often use tax-assessed values because it is such a low amount of financing. It's very low risk to the lending institutions. Some banks unequivocally demand appraisals 100% of the time. Other ones will use a property assessment tool if you got that much down. They'll allow desktop or drive-by appraisals, which are less costly and quicker to get, but will still provide them some comfort. So those are the situations where an appraisal will be required. If you're being asked for one and you don't understand why, just give me a call. I'll give you an explanation for it. I'm Rowan Smith from the Mortgage Center.